111.
Yeah, just paragraph. Yeah, I know, but this angle is gonna make it.
Right on the back of the.
I think it's more confusing for Russians. We visibly look different, so it's not hard. Yeah.
Today, well, first of all, good evening. It's evening, everyone. Today, I figured out that Kahoot test that I planned, it's unavailable on the territory of Russia. And at home, everything works. And like here, okay, that's why I thought, well, as for the quiz, I'm still undecided. It depends on you. But anyway, for this particular quiz and for the quizzes that we are going to have, I was thinking that the first quiz is going to be like a pilot one for extra grade points for those who get like the highest scores. Obviously, we're going to change the format of our quizzes, but the additional grade points I think is a good idea for us to practice. So let's do that not only with the active participation with seminars, which are obligatory and which are going to be graded, but also with lecture participation. Beside from the quiz, I will think about how to do that. We have some agenda, a lot of, well, pretty much topics to cover. This is the second lecture. You have read so far a lot, and I think for the next week, we just have only one like important paper on strategy. But overall, we're going to discuss just adding new elements to what you already know or read. Let's start traditionally by the course Content Navigator. Last lecture, we were discussing knowledge management, discipline, and types of knowledge. I graded your works and found out some very surprising results straight away. What is external knowledge? External type of knowledge. This is what? Explicit, no. No. Let's structure these types of knowledge in the following. I was thinking about how to do that. You remember we have ants. Okay, let's have people. We have a person over here. We have an organization over here. Personal knowledge, right? Organizational knowledge. Traditional approach in knowledge management is to do what? To put all the knowledge in this head into organizational knowledge, right? How do we do that? Qualification, codification. To codify what? Let's be more concise here. Let's say HSC professor. What knowledge of HSC professor, organization, university, still organization, could store as an organizational knowledge? Your ideas, Maria. HSC professor, qualification, publications, PhD, how to store this knowledge within the organization in case he or she left HSC. To do what?
Maybe to make him share.
Document it, but document like what? You cannot document all my knowledge, for instance.
Yeah,
Publications, but these publications are available to all universities, like community available.
Tacit knowledge.
Teaching assistants. So to transfer knowledge to other people within this organization, right? And they are going to be sources of this, well, obviously test knowledge. Okay, what else? Training for whom?
For the employees or anything that with the knowledge.
So this person is going to train someone, or we're going to train people who are here. What do
This
you?
person is going to train the people that were there.
So this person is going to teach like an open lesson, for example, or
Just like teach the skills and show them like how it is done like practically.
whom he's going to teach.
To the other employees.
Colleagues,
that need,
fellow colleagues.
Yes.
Okay. Please think about these issues because these codification procedures we're going to talk about, but yes, you agree. So this knowledge we need to somehow codify here in organizational knowledge. What is organizational knowledge? Personal knowledge? What is organizational? Some of you mentioned it correctly, but let's just say it out loud. What it is? Documents, like what documents? Policies, how things work, right? Organizational structure, right? Responsibilities, job descriptions, what are your functionality, what's the zones of responsibility, organizational culture, although it's not that tangible, but still we could impact that. Okay. And all business processes and practices over here in organizational knowledge. And also, well, we have people here inside. Okay, so personal, organizational. As for knowledge of this particular person, we could say it's explicit if it relates to expertise. For instance, my knowledge of accounting, explicit knowledge, right? You know specific rules, or my knowledge of knowledge management. I know specific structure, I go within this structure. Everything is clear. For tacit, not that clear, and today, hope we're gonna, well, once again, discuss this. For tacit knowledge, you all answered correctly, and I agreed with everyone. You remember ballet, yes, and well, the ballet dancers, their tacit knowledge, okay. Surgeons, basically, right? And their knowledge, I wrote, by the way, to some of the groups that, of course, their knowledge is tacit, because, well, making a surgery is not about, like, I don't know, diagnostics in medicine or wherever. It's very serious, hands-on. You remember that tacit knowledge, you had examples like bicycles, like dancing and so on. This is like physical involvement, okay, but don't forget it could be also a fuzzy nature, for instance, strategy development or marketing promotion strategy development, teaching experience, which are more fuzzy. Baker, do we think that he, like bakery, making bread, let's say not like this famous fancy hotel baker, chef, but I don't know, bulky or cech bakeries. Do you think that bakers at these bakeries need to have some specific tacit knowledge? No, no. They just need to be of some decent level of intelligence to follow specific steps. That's it, right? No need to go deeper into that. It is important for us. Okay, tacit knowledge over here. We want to codify it somehow. We are going to discuss different procedures possible to do that. Except for that, we also have this person being part of the community. And within this community, we have individual knowledge and we have so-called collective knowledge. And this collective knowledge, the majority of you answered correctly, related to language or national culture, aspects, values, and so on, which is over here, which is somehow shared by the community. And we have other organizations, let's say not triangles, but squares over here. Their knowledge is going to be external with regard to this particular organization, right? And in this regard, when you are saying that in surgery, external knowledge is important, what do we mean here? In what way? Or external knowledge for bakery or airline companies is important? Obviously, no, right? Obviously, in all these cases, we're talking about organizational knowledge, because or individual personal knowledge, tacit or explicit doesn't matter. In bakery, we have to be very clear what's the procedure. The majority is organizational knowledge. There are certain steps how to prepare a specific item, commodity. We need some person who do not need to have tacit knowledge, nor maybe even explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge, just, well, ordinary person who follows specific knowledge stored within this organization. That's it, right? No unique knowledge, skills, whatever. In HEC, a little bit different, but we're going to discuss that. So organizational knowledge with regard to organization. And in this case, organizational knowledge with regard to the company could be what? We provided examples: universities, consulting companies, business partners, for instance, if you are in alliance with someone, mergers and acquisitions, and your company is going to be the source of new knowledge for your organization. And this new knowledge, external knowledge, you are going to use in one way or another. Okay. These are four types of knowledge. It's important for us to discuss, because I shared with you examples of final projects. You saw that there was an impact of type of knowledge that you have to explore and use and pay attention. We're going to discuss more about that. Let's go back to Course Navigator. Types and knowledge management like as the discipline. Then we have processes, specific processes, how we manage knowledge, and we discussed with you only 3 processes. Darren, I received your email. There is 9, but we haven't discussed them. Today we're gonna do so. Then we have practices to manage knowledge. You read the paper on knowledge creating companies. And in the end of this paper, there were some practices on how to manage this knowledge. Could you please remind me, what were these practices? Valeria, what do you remember? How to manage knowledge creating company. You need to do what? Who could remind me what was there about?
I think there are quite a lot, but is it the one about stimulating trust, for example?
Yes. This is about knowledge sharing, predominantly you're talking about. But another paper was about knowledge creation, how we create knowledge from tacit to explicit. Yes, Elena. Assign different groups to the same project. I remember Eva last time said that it's going to be waste. Well, last time we discussed time, but here waste of resources. I hypothesized that you're going to say that, yes? No? No?
Did you say that about assigning top management to things?
But why assigning different projects, different groups to the same project and doubling basically the job is not a waste of resource? Okay, they need to study. Okay. Well, obviously you read the paper, but the Western approach says that no need for such redundancy. This is what you're talking about, redundancy. So you duplicate the information between different groups of people so that they know more. And in this regard, they could know less and spend more time on their specialized knowledge, but they know more in order, well, to generate some new knowledge, more innovations. I think that not always we need to do that. For redundancy, this is a very good thank you for that. This is a very good illustration towards what we are going to do and what you as managers have to keep into consideration when you manage any activity within the company. Here we're going to talk about knowledge. Here we're going to talk about creating knowledge, because for knowledge sharing, there are going to be different strategies than for knowledge creation. But redundancy, if we're talking about redundancy, it means that job description of particular specialist employees, it is wider than in usual circumstances. We're talking here about structure in general. Let's call it even infrastructure. Infrastructure, or let's call it organizational structure. Organizational structure. What do we know from knowledge sharing paper is that the more hierarchies you have, the more difficult it is to share knowledge between departments. So that's why flat structure, where, for instance, you have all of the same level is the best. That's why startup companies and so on, they actively share knowledge, well, because they have this flat structure. And this is all related to organizational structure. A lot of levels of analysis, levels of hierarchy, hinders knowledge sharing intensity. This is number one. Number two, strategy. Today we are going to talk more about strategy, and you're going to read paper about strategy for the next time, because this is indeed extremely important. My question up to you, just to think about, do we need knowledge management for all organizations? Because, well, people need to learn, to train, or not. Of course, it depends on strategy, and we're going to look at different strategies. Here, you have also to keep into consideration this strategy effect. Okay, then we have, if we're talking about knowledge management, knowledge and contemporary organizations, IT solutions. IT solution and IT approach was initially the first to manage knowledge in organizations, to codify everything. Well, to some degree, and one strategy, knowledge management, requires it, but others not necessarily. Then measuring. You as managers, measurement. When you are going to decide in particular innovations within your organization or department of group, you need to decide and conduct cost-benefit analysis, basically understanding whether do I need a return on investments, for instance, benefits, costs, whether do I need to invest in very expensive knowledge management system or not. And if I invest, you have to be aware about costs, and costs are usually very high. That's why when you develop your projects, please think about the feasibility of your studies. Does a small or medium-sized company has the resources for large investments in IT and HR? And here about trust, about organizational culture, interventions, and so on. All these 5 elements impact different resources. Currently, within this course, we're discussing knowledge management resources. So redundancy. Strategically, we could say, okay, we're aiming at innovations, at creating new knowledge like Japanese companies. That's why our structure involves extended job descriptions. That's why in HR practices, we have continuous rotations. If I remember, they mentioned that. That's why within the IT and the infrastructure in general, they have access of all employees to company information, well, in order to have the same sense of community. And this, well, leads to, well, intensified knowledge creation processes. Okay, this was like the third part, how do we manage? And the fourth part, we were talking about course navigator, about final projects. Okay, knowledge management definition, please, those who remember. Christina, please. What is knowledge management, the discipline we study? Make yourself louder, please. Malti, I hear. Okay, I hear objectives by making best use of knowledge, right? By making best use of knowledge. Okay. So multidisciplined. Already here you see that we develop on different disciplines. Organizational objectives. Organizational objectives are defined by strategy. It's important for me that we understand the general scheme. And here knowledge. and different types of knowledge we've already discussed. If these objectives differ, and we're going to discuss them, then the knowledge management strategies, ways of managing knowledge could be different. And we will discuss today different knowledge management aspects: 3 levels of analysis: individual, group, organizational; 3 knowledge related processes, 3 to 9, and 5 aspects of managing knowledge. They are over here. So these are 5. Okay. Content Navigator, we're on the same side. My question to you, I'm leaving HSC. So which type of knowledge loss are we talking about? Me, myself, leaving HSC, what type of loss for the organization we're talking about? Please. Personal knowledge, obviously. Let's be specific here.
In case of personal knowledge, well, maybe we could have some specific knowledges that we could share with it could be maybe knowledge of the softwares.
Okay, so explicit knowledge, knowledge of software, qualifications, and so on, which are called explicit knowledge. What's the idea here and why they were talking about knowledge management as important one? We have organization, we have a person inside the organization. Let's imagine this person leaves the organization. What happens if this person has 3 employees, one of them leaves, and one of them is the possessor of all knowledge within the organization? We as organization, we have nothing basically. But even if it's a highly talented, expertised employee, we as managers of this organization have to do something in order to leave this knowledge within the organization. How can we do that? Well, obviously, to make this person, codify his knowledge to leave it within the organization. However, with the university professor, it is difficult. We already discussed it, not that simple. Secondly, we could develop the scheme where, for instance, PhD students get into the organization or postdocs teaching here. We have some ground of organizational knowledge. And as a result, some people leaving this organization would not that harm, right, our potential organization. For HSC, let's think. Raise your hands, those who agree that university professor leaving HSC is a knowledge management problem for HSC. I have 1 hand, 2 hand, 2 and 3.5, 4.5. And others assume that it's not a problem. Now, Shad, why it's not a problem?
Because if we recruit someone who can teach you someone who's better on the subject.
So 1 employee leaving, we could buy another one, basically, right? Okay, and those who said that this is a knowledge management problem, could you justify your position there, and what do you think?
I think we're not just talking about explicit knowledge. I think there's relational capital that's lost.
A relational capital, very good. So know
for
how.
example, your professor, he might not just know the stuff that's in textbook, but not just industry knowledge, but he might have contacts. Yeah, that we lose, let's say the guy leaves, so we can't have any industry talks or any guest speakers that are his friends.
That's a very nice comment here about employees having not only their human capital, but also their social capital or relational capital in terms of whom they know, right? And this is a particular element, well, that all employees have, especially in academic settings. But for top management, middle management area, also counts. Absolutely agree with you here. So yes, so we're talking about not only explicit qualifications, expertise, knowledge, but also knowledge, know who, basically, right? These relations. Okay. What if HSC being left not by professor, but master student's office employee? Dara, would it be a knowledge related problem
I think it's
here?
possible because there's, I think it's called structural capital. There's certain systems that they use within the office that's usually not encoded or written down.
Mhm.
That when the employee of the master student office leaves, the next person might have to pick up the whole process from the start. So
Mhm.
it's example, how to register a student might not be codified.
Well, might not be codified, but in HSC we have a lot of codification procedures, and we have a lot of master offices that have certain, well, similar procedures, right? At least we could ask. So in the second example, we agree that the loss from the point of view of management would be smaller,
Yeah.
right? Smaller. How to save the knowledge of this person within the organization in case he or she leaves? It's the point for you as managers to really think about, right? So basically, to one way or another make person stay within the organization, paying higher, creating the atmosphere and so on, or creating the system where you could buy in place. And basically in HR management, there are two decisions about people. First decision, to buy in the market. So you have professors in the world market. Okay, you pay them, they come here and teach. And to grow, to develop. So you have, in our case, PhD student who got their doctorate, and then they teach here as assistant professors and so on, or within the company. If we pursue this strategy, we get what? New knowledge from other companies, new ideas, and so on. Here, so-called specific knowledge. These people have specific knowledge within the organization. Imagine he started as an engineer or production worker at the factory, and then he is the head of the whole holding, for example. He knows the specificity about the industry, and usually it also matters. That's why in HR we have two decisions, also, well, all possible. So when we are saying that in the bakery, for instance, these people who work there and bake cakes leave, we do not say that there is any kind of problem. We could buy new such employees from the market, right? Teach them using specific codified guidelines, and that's it. We have, well, maybe internship with other bakers, short one, and you have your specialist, no problem here. But here might be problem, knowledge-related problem that we are gonna, well, talk about. Okay. We discussed with you these aspects. Core knowledge. Knowledge domains and core knowledge. Even within these people, we're gonna have some people who are of higher value and some who have less value. If we develop this idea more, we would talk about a quadrant of, in management, they love such kind of quadrants or structures or classifications. I guess you have noticed that. All human capital within the organization, all our employees or people affiliated with our company could be divided into 4 types based on uniqueness and value. And value, this is from Vryn resource-based view types. So we use these people for us to generate in our operations, in our day-to-day activities. If we are an engineering company, these are our engineers. If we're a research institution, these are our researchers, and so on. So what do we have here? If human resources do not participate in our operations, for example, we are a research university and we have, but we need to do accounting. Do we need to hire an accountant? Not necessarily, right? We could do what? We could, well, here would be to employ this one on this particular value, high value, employ. And here would be some to contract, like temporal activity, to employ. Okay, basically we employ researchers, we contract outsource, right, accountants. Okay, if we employ these people, their uniqueness could be low, this one, or high. If we are talking about low uniqueness, it means that these are people which are, for instance, for research university, assistants, teaching assistants, methodologists, and so on. Here would be our decision to buy. We just buy from the market, which was over here, to buy. And this approach is called market-based, because we are buying on the market. Market-based approach. So we do what? We go to the market and buy people who contribute value to our operations. In contrast to here, if we have accountant, they do not contribute to our operations, outsource. Outsource. Okay, to buy here, but what if it is value and it is unique knowledge? Remember LeaseCore company, the president of LeaseCore, contributing absolutely clear value to the leasing process and also having unique knowledge, historical knowledge on how to make these processes to develop. So these are the employees, and this is called commitment-based approach. We are committed. Commitment-based approach. We're committed to these people. We want them to stay within our organizations. And these particular people we're talking about. No need to focus on these people here, and we could develop, codify knowledge for them to use it. My question here, what would be over here? Low value for our core operations, but high uniqueness. Any guesses, any ideas? What would be in this quadrant? So unique knowledge rare knowledge, could be as important as LISCO company president, but fortunately or unfortunately, we do not use his knowledge, her knowledge in our productions. Here, experts, consulting, and so on. So yes, they have knowledge, but this knowledge is not part of our core operations. When I mean core operations, these are basically processes that generate value for us, right? Like for leasing company, this leasing activities and leasing pricing. Okay, these are basically HR modes for you to be aware of. Why it is important? Because when you're going to work on your final projects, you need to differentiate and figure out these core knowledge assets. So we are not interested in all employees within the company, in all operations, just the major ones. Okay. All company resources. If we are talking about resources, continuing with the core knowledge assets, well, traditional resources and intellectual resources. Here we're talking about intellectual resources. The question everyone answered correctly, three major elements: structural, relational, and human capital. As for these resources, you remember we said that these resources are, and intellectual capital is core knowledge within the organization. But if we are just saying, okay, we have three resources, three types, elements of intellectual capital, that's not enough for us. We need to go deeper into understanding what are the main resources. Let's sum up with our examples. Although at this level, structural capital, knowledge, processes, procedures, relational capital, whom we know our social capital, knowledge about customers, suppliers, and human capital, knowledge, skills, abilities of our employees. HSC, which element of intellectual capital is the most important? Raise your hands, those who think that this is relational capital. Structural capital. We're talking here about structural capital as knowledge, right? Schemes, procedures, databases of applicants, programs, syllabuses of the programs, computers, software, right? And raise your hands those who think that it's human capital as the most important. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What's the human capital? Okay, and structural capital. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eva, you're so confident in structural capital. Why? So you're saying that the core element in HSC is structural capital because we have.
I'm not saying about HSC, I'm saying about federal companies, which HSC is one of.
Okay, in HSC we have some core knowledge, right? It could be divided into three elements: structural, relational, human employees, whom we know, our applicants, suppliers, and so on, procedures, guidelines, and so on. What out of these three is the most important for HSC? So human.
For HSC, yes.
For HSC,
Yes.
for HSC, human. Okay. Who thinks it's relational, structural? There were some yeses. Structural, yes, please, Ahmad. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think the procedures and the databases and all that is very important. With no university to run that.
Let's imagine we fire all HSC professors and somehow find new ones. Everything's going to be okay in this case.
Bit time, yes.
Huh?
Time, yes.
With time, yes. Uh-huh. Well, that's an interesting question here. Okay, bakery. Bakery, like Bulkits, whatever. Raise your hands, those who think it's human capital. Bakery. Bakery. Uh-huh. Okay, relational capital. Uh-huh. Relational capital for Bulky. Relational capital, knowledge that we store in our databases about our clients, about our competitors, providers of food, of well, raw materials, people whom we know, like business partners, and so on. So, okay, relational capital, 1, 2, 3, okay, structural capital. Structural capital. In structural capital, what we're gonna have there? What's inside? Recipes, okay. Procedure, okay. When we're talking about franchising business model, right? We're talking about structural capital with all this knowledge and recipes and business processes like being shared with us. We just hire people, find a spot and just run our business. Okay, structural capital. Okay, consulting company. Consulting company, there are different types of consulting companies. Let's say auditing companies. Auditing, no like high math, just very traditional auditing procedures. Raise your hands, those who think that this is relational capital, the most important for the auditing consulting company. Okay, relational capital. I was thinking about structural capital. Maria, 1. Елизавета, structural capital, human capital. Human capital, the majority human capital. Maria, why structural? Because of so in auditing, you're saying the processes are very straightforward and simple. You just need to follow them. Under human capital, we mean knowledge, skills, abilities of employees.
Abilities of employees are not so important as the processes, because in completing the audit, the most complicated thing is to organize the process when there's a lot of documents and all these documents should be checked. The most important thing is to make them be checked somehow and processes them.
I see your point. So the most important thing is organization. But someone might argue, some of those who voted for human capital, maybe human capital of project managers of auditing projects is important for the organization.
The knowledge of project managers
Okay. What do we have here? We have auditors over here. We have project manager over here, and you are saying that, okay, here could be our auditors. They have some qualification, explicit knowledge, right? They know accounting rules, procedures, and so on. So it's not that difficult to check like financial reporting to see that everything is right, correct? But it's more important here to organize everything. So either the human capital of this particular person or structural capital in the form of the diagram how everything works, how everything is organized. And in this case, any manager could get into the auditing company, get idea of these processes, and then organize the process. This is what you're talking about, Maria, right? And in this case, structural capital is the most important, right? Okay. And in this way, we are not that interested in these particular people who are at the bottom of the pyramid. They're not that skilled, but they are graduates of economic faculties, like having internships in different consulting companies, case championships.
Why are you working with like medium range auditing companies? They are case champions and whatever.
Well, because there are not that many positions for so many brilliant students, I guess.
then they can be
They can be easily substituted, yes. Yes. And this is one of the business models that we need to be aware of. It's not like ideal situation that we are family and we keep every employee within the company. No, we could have very codified structural capital. We have people whom we make to work, I don't know, 16 hours per day, 6 days a week. And in 2 years, they have burned out and we get new graduates. This is also possible scheme. This is like, thank you, Maria, for illustration. It could be different, right? It could be different. This strategy, when we codify everything, for instance, from these project managers, from partners, from these companies, maybe from here, if they propose some suggestions, when we codify everything into structural capital, is called codification strategy. Codification, knowledge management strategy. When we are talking about strategies, we need to differentiate between organizational strategy. Organizational strategy is the plan of how we are gonna get our sustained competitive advantage, or how we are gonna get our increased performance. And we have knowledge management strategy. This is different. How we are gonna align our knowledge with this plan. What we are going to do with this knowledge. If our task is basically within this strategy, for example, to reduce costs, right? Okay, we could reduce costs here. And in this regard, what can we do? One way is codification knowledge management strategy. There are two strategies, actually. This is number one, this is number two. We're going to talk about them, but this is like important for us up to now to understand. Oleg, you asked me about what's inside relational capital. We need to go deeper into understanding what's inside each element of intellectual capital, keeping in mind that this is, well, our intangibles, our knowledge, that obviously we could have employees, different tacit and explicit knowledge, competence, usually as qualification, my knowledge of accounting or auditing, explicit knowledge or tacit knowledge, work-related knowledge, this is so-called firm-specific knowledge, innovativeness, well, basic education, this is one, structural capital. For structural capital, organizational culture. What is organizational culture? Unwritten rules that drive employees' behavior within the company. Also, we have different types of copyrights, trademarks, and patents over here. So these are all part of structural capital. Internal databases and management processes, organizational structure, guidelines, databases of HSE and potential applicants and so on. It is over here, and well, this is important. Relational capital, brand here. Okay, consulting companies, why do they go there? Because it's in one way or another. It's brand, reputation, strategic alliances, because there we could get a lot of knowledge, customers, well, information about customers and what do we know about customers, licenses, agreements, and distribution channels, our knowledge about where to, well, distribute our services or products. This is like the general structure. When you're gonna do your analysis, we need to figure out in each element, what is the core, well, first of all, what is 1, 2, 3 rank for each element of intellectual capital, but then you need to go deeper and understand what's in each element of intellectual capital, what is the most important part. For instance, here we're going to talk indeed about structural capital, because it allows us to structure the procedures so that these people could be replaceable, and relational capital, because these partners within such companies, they are in charge of sales, right? They know people whom they could sell their auditing, consulting practices. That's important. You could, well, launch your consulting company, but without relational capital, it is difficult to, well, actually sell your services. So over here, for consulting or auditing company, we have such thing. Consulting company is going to be different. We're going to discuss that. There are different things. Pretty much the same idea over here with the structural intellectual capital elements, more specifically, in even more details. In structural capital, just paying your attention, we have intellectual properties of different kind, and this is our structural capital element. Well, a part of our organizational capital, and we have infrastructure assets, different kind of infrastructure. As for infrastructure, it was over here, we discussed it, corporate culture, management processes, information processes, leadership style stays within the company. What is also important here, this idea that I would like to draw your attention to. If we have people who are staying within this organization, if they are gonna leave, well, with time, but slowly but surely, and there are gonna be coming new people, this entity as organization with its corporate culture, organization processes, values, and so on, it's gonna stay. So we could figure out, and in one way, in certain time, we're gonna go from this organization with this number of people to this organization with absolutely different people, but the core of organization, the core of procedures is gonna stay the same. This is like an organization which could, and there are companies that like exist for hundreds of years that, well, in general stay the same. This is important, and this is like one of the impacts of corporate culture and organizational processes within each organization. It is important for us to understand. Okay, so when we're talking taking bakery, university, consulting company, marketing company, in each case, we have different types of intellectual capital elements, different core assets that bring us value. Intellectual capital, the majority of researchers, they measure it as proxies, using proxy indicators, but here, well, we have survey, questionnaire, specific scales for, well, structure and the capital. Just feel this idea behind elements from different angle. Our employees are highly skilled, our employees are highly motivated, our employees have high level of expertise. That's it, 3 questions that proved to be efficient in measuring well, human capital notion that we're talking about. In structural capital, our company has efficient, relevant information systems, like IT systems, information solutions. Our company has tools and facilities to support cooperation. So tools and facilities for something. Our company has a great deal of useful knowledge in documents and guidelines. So documents and guidelines as part of structural capital, and existing documents solutions are easily accessible. Like this point also very important. We could codify all knowledge from these particular people, but if we do not make these people use this knowledge, then it's of no value for us. And usually it happens when they ask people to share their knowledge, reports, weekly reports, and so on, that no one uses. We're going to discuss how to overcome this. Relational capital, different units and functions within our company, such as R&D production, understand each other. Internal relational capital, our employees frequently collaborate to solve problems. Internal cooperation runs smoothly. Our company and external stakeholders, customers, partners understand each other well. External stakeholders frequently collaborate to solve problems. Cooperation between our company and external stakeholders runs smoothly. So external stakeholders, meaning everything we meant, is also well taken into account in this notion of relational capital. So, okay, this is just for us to understand that when you're going to select the company, it's not the company itself, like at the general level we're talking about. We're talking about the most valuable, you remember this classification, valuable aspects and valuable knowledge, which is over here, and this is core knowledge. And in intellectual capital elements, there are going to be different core elements that we need to focus on. Okay, strategy and knowledge management. I discussed a lot about strategy. I will share with you the slides to show that, but in general, just wanted to pay your attention here. You read for the previous class 2 papers on resource-based view and knowledge theory of the firm. And just a second, I created a concept map for us to be on the same side, for you just to like be aware of. We have resource-based view. This is like the main element, the main idea in contemporary management. Resource-based view, 2 major assumptions, which are very actual for our well projects. Unevenly distributed resources. Unevenly distributed resources, meaning that not all employees are, well, of equal importance for us, and that employees are going to have different level of knowledge, expertise, and value. Okay, which leads us to long-lasting differences in their productivity, for example. Okay, and the main idea, we have valuable, rare, inimitable, non-substitutable resources that lead to sustained competitive advantage or performance. In the end, performance. Mirroring concept is the concept of knowledge theory of the firm, which states that this VRIN resource in our case is knowledge. And we defined knowledge as one's understanding of certain information and also residual thinking, meaning, and it is important, only humans can think. Machines cannot do so. That's why when we're talking about data information, numerical information, for instance, information on in airline company, this was the type of knowledge as external knowledge. That was not an external knowledge if we're talking about weather information, weather data, speed of wind, and so on. This is just, well, data. Knowledge is what we could think of and then apply it to our use. Okay, knowledge results as VRIN resource to sustain competitive advantage, and this is measured as performance. Okay, and our goal here is to obtain these valuable resources. From the point of view of knowledge theory, our goal here is to effectively manage knowledge, its types, different types, and processes. We're going to discuss processes, well, today. Its types, processes, and final output of this knowledge processes, elements of intellectual capital of different kind. I'm gonna talk about them also. This is like the general picture. To be on the same side, please do have a look when you are gonna read other papers. It is important for us, well, to have this. Okay, these papers set the framework for our analysis of strategy. We discussed one strategy. This is codification strategy. So it is the strategy when we codify everything so that new bakers or new auditor consultants could use this information in their analysis. By the way, can we in HSC do so, like codify oil classes plans, books, slides, and then just assign specific person to teach a certain course? Can HSC pursue codification strategy or not? Raise your hands those who think that yes, HSC can do that. Oh, 1, 2, 3. Raise your hands those who think that yes, HSC can do that. If new professors, well, have nice presentation skills or develop testing soft skills. No, why no? Why no? Yeah, but why no?
I'm not sure about that. Like, I have no thoughts about that.
Okay. Any guesses?
It's about skills, right? It's about testing of knowledge. So you might have instructions or some nice way of doing things, perhaps the professor doesn't
But okay, you are saying if the person do not have knowledge, he cannot teach. We have a new professor who, well, reads all textbooks, all papers, all slides. He gets this knowledge. Why not use codification strategy then? He has this, well, as for the explicit knowledge, he has everything.
I think he lacks experience.
He lacks what?
Experience.
Experience. For what? Experience of what? Of dealing with classroom or with lecturing? Is it so important?
Somebody works or goes up these, experience such knowledge that they have used becomes experiential knowledge.
Okay, experience. But what about like novices in the field of teaching? They also do not have experience. Okay.
But this is HSC we're talking about, and we're talking about finding information, right? So that's different.
Okay. Okay. So for organizations, we need to have experience, you're saying. For HSC, no. Or vice
No,
versa.
I'm saying experience is important.
Experience is important.
I think
Okay.
I'll give an example of you, professor. If you had somebody else with this kind of system of teaching, they have everything written down and has to teach according to the book. I think it would be worrying because it would be referring to the book all the time. Wouldn't be able to give us practical examples, right?
Okay, so experience leads to more examples, which makes courses more interesting, and HSC is interested in high quality teaching.
Yes.
This is your logic. Okay, okay. Who thinks that we could get someone to teach by the course materials and so on? Who thinks that it could be effective? Maria, why you're seem skeptical? Okay. Uh-huh.
And if the person just took slides, even they on the slides really well, it's still not unbelievable.
So he needs to know more than it is in the slides so that he could apply to that knowledge when it is necessary.
So they could share something without that is that we can't just find in the book.
So broad expertise.
Yeah, because for sure university can do this. But I prefer that
I can add to say, I believe knowledge is relevant with some context. So when somebody has experience, like context provides, right? And that makes lessons effective for
Okay, I see your point. So in this way, you're talking that this particular HSC professor or instructor has experience, has some tacit knowledge, some explicit broad range of knowledge that he could use. And we cannot, well, straight away change this person with someone else from the street, right? It means that, well, how do you call it? We do not have that much knowledge, core knowledge assets within our, well, within our scope, within our environment to grab really fast. Also, as for novices, it's one of the, well, ways of raising new professors in HSC, that we have teaching assistantship. We have several professors for one course, combined courses, and so on, so that these people learn from this highly knowledgeable, experienced professor. And our attention as managers should be at the process of, at which particular process of knowledge management? When we are connecting this nice person, it's crown, with these people. How do we call this process?
Yeah. Someone behind said it, sharing.
Sharing, yes. So knowledge sharing, basically we need to do what? We need to create as much conditions as possible for these people to communicate more. Since you're students, you have examples. Okay, combined courses. They design the program together, they learn from each other, learn like best practices. By the way, when we finish that, I will share with you one methodics practice that I stolen from my, well, more experienced knowledge management instructor colleagues. So we'll share it with you when we discussed our like knowledge management course. Combined course. What else? So publications and co-authorship on publications when you share some, well, knowledge. maybe writing cases, for example. So up-to-date knowledge. What else? How to connect experienced professors with no voices in the field for them to share knowledge. Training of this particular person to these guys.
Yes.
In what way? Like what?
Having small workshops.
Uh-huh. Okay. So workshops on how to teach knowledge management, for example. Okay, what else? Well, we have teaching assistants, possible. In organizations, if we're talking about organization, there is such effect as which is called water cooler effect. Water cooler, well, cooler with water, when people get together and they, well, discuss something, something related to work, usually it is assumed, or smoking area, pretty much the same idea. I studied at Psychology University, St. Petersburg University, and they were laughing that those students who used to go to the smoking area became psychology professors because they were in the community of people who, while smoking, discussed some concepts and so on. And in this way, they were like sharing their knowledge and were committed to the field. So without such a room, there is no like commitment to the area. Okay, water cooler effect. All kinds of knowledge sharing opportunities you read in the paper on knowledge sharing hostility, which we're going to talk about, because this might be the problem here. Not that straightforward fear of loss, for example, but maybe we're going to discuss this. But up to now, I would ask you to do the following. And this strategy that we're talking here, orientation on knowledge sharing, is called the personalization. So person, knowledgeable person, and this knowledgeable person, this is number one, this is number two. And this knowledgeable person is going to be our major core knowledge assets, and we try to connect all other less knowledgeable people with him. In codification strategy, knowledge management strategy, we have guidelines, and we connect these people to these guidelines, and they well stick to these guidelines. Maybe we could test their knowledge, maybe they could have short internships in our local bakery or department, whatever, so that they know how to apply this knowledge. But these are two different, like foundationally different approaches. How do we share knowledge in organizations? You might say, why not codify all knowledge? It is well kind of clear that, okay, codified and then everyone can use. It requires time to get all this kind of knowledge. So not that simple. Not that simple. This is number one. However, people might not want to share knowledge. We're going to discuss knowledge sharing hostility. For codification, it is difficult to codify knowledge. It is difficult to codify knowledge, and I propose us to do the following thing. As usual, let's count from 1 to, and please be attentive here, from 1 to 4. Let's have 4. 4. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Group number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Valeria. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Eva. 1, 2, 3, 4. And Ikachuku 1. Group number 1 and group number 2 over here. Group number 3 over here. Group number 4 over here. Please do join group 1 and 2, 3 and 4.
Because we can't.
And guys who are online, you are gonna work together right now, all together. Please join your mini groups. Okay. One, two, three, and four. One, this first desk, two. One, group number one over here. Two, three. Two over here, right? And three and four. Tacit knowledge is difficult to codify and difficult to share. It's difficult, well, because we do not know how it works. Let's try to share our tacit knowledge, which is not obvious. This is a task usually used to check one's children's IQ. It's gonna be a simple frog test. So I assume that you'll, do it fast. Your task is to solve the problem. I will show it to you. And then to double check, there are going to be difficulties, but within some group members, to double check that all of your mini group members understand how to solve this issue. And I will randomly ask some group members to solve it. And if you fail, well, you fail. So your task is to share this knowledge. I will share it to you what knowledge. I will just show you what knowledge to share. It's gonna be simple puzzle with frogs when you are gonna be asked to move frogs from one side to another. So this, in order to do so, I will share with you link soon. In order to do so, basically you just click and then, well, it says, okay, seems you're stuck. And then you try to do it many ways, double. And then those who understand, please make sure that you can explain to other people, but you are prohibited to make any notes and so on. You could only pass this knowledge once you solve it verbally, only verbally. So where can you find this? Where can you find this thing? In LMS, there are course materials. In course materials, there is additional materials section, and there is tacit knowledge line. So this is tacit knowledge thing. Please find it in LMS. You could solve it from your devices, mobile phones, laptops. If someone found it, please share it with within the group chat. I will share it with students online. And I will create the group for online students. If someone had found, you could share the link. Let's have 8 minutes for all groups to work on. Mind the time, 8 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Make sure that everyone in your group understands the task. If you're ready, please raise your hand.
No, I successfully done it. No, you can choose.
Yes. Once again. I guess it was 3. 3. Yes, 3.
Yeah. I think there is there's a difference between the idea that's in the front and the one behind the camera.
You have to just move one by one of these.
5 minutes, please. Hurry up.
Can you see the
What you have
I'll
to do?
tell one person so that it doesn't.
If you have solved it individually, please teach this knowledge to all your group members.
Because the first time.
If you know how to solve it, you could explain
So I just
Yeah.
others.
only one person first. So.
Okay,
So.
let's see. I've done it the second time. Yeah, but I'm not sure how I've done it, so I guess we can do it.
There's a meeting.
I haven't
The
tried to
meeting from is the one in
dictate the
front.
numbers.
Special.
No, the numbers. Let's, yeah, let's.
The non-meeting.
And I will try to tell you numbers. Right. Yeah, so it's,
Yeah.
5,
So this one, priority is
6.
So let me just try. Because the
Oh, yes.
okay, okay, the idea is this. The idea is this, that like, about the actual operation. So the idea is just, remember the idea there's a leapfrog. Your leapfrog is the frog that is not inserted, but is in the front of his row. So what you want to do is that, remember this idea of the leapfrog, and then the idea of the non-leapfrog. So
No, 6.
your priority is to ensure that non-living frogs are exactly 2 spaces behind the frog in front. So every single stage, if you go to, we start with the 2, go to 2 spaces, just get it down to 2. So I for a very simple example. So what you do is that you want to ensure that the non-talks are always 2 spaces behind. So in this case, what you must do is you only have one option, so you click this. So by this group are 2 spaces apart. I have no choice, so this is the only other option. So the priority again is to ensure that my dots are 2 spaces in between. So by this, I must move this with here. And then here, 2 spaces in between, my priority is this. That's the quality spot. Try to do it for 3 and then try to see if you can remember the steps. Or I'll run you all through like 3 steps, 3 props. So what you must do is let's all click the same one. Let's all click the black spot.
Let me know those who have finished. Let's check your knowledge.
Okay.
Finished? So everyone knows how to solve. Yes? 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 Okay, Maria, let's do this.
Every time I think the next I forget it. When it's finished, I remember.
So
Okay,
you're not gonna
so double check that everyone knows.
So you
One more time together. Okay, let's go. 3, 5, 6.
No, 2 spaces. This one must. Your priority is to ensure that 2 spaces in between.
5, 7.
The trees. So the first thing is you just move the
I always remember the answer.
so remember you must cut the spaces.
1, 3, 5, 6.
You want to make sure your priority is to ensure that spacing.
5, 7. 3, 5, 7. 6,
Here is
1,
again.
4,
Since you need to have 2 spaces. This one has
no.
So this is your so if you want to maximize, so your priority is always 2 spaces between from and so here yes, you can't show this because that stays space up. Your priority is to ensure that you make a move that is too far. Yeah, you can't move this because
Okay, time is up. Let's check.
Yeah, that 1 by 1.
Done? Everyone?
Yes.
Maria.
So what happens if you move that? Counts one step. What you want to do is your priority.
Okay. Okay. Those who are finished, please
But then
write an instruction to the person who haven't seen before this puzzle how to solve it.
We can write it.
Yes.
make the box with 7 boxes. Number. And then just write the moves, right? Yeah, we can just draw the box, 7 boxes, and then number them.
Yeah, yeah, it's fine. Then the new problem is the problem.
It's up to you to decide how you would make instructions.
Okay,
Okay, I believe, right?
what is now?
Okay, right? Okay, let's who is ready to show me?
Okay, this one is 7. I will so if I get yes, gives you, then we'll write it space without. Okay, then you first space without.
Why don't
Then this one, what I was moving it, then this one,
I want to have
this one.
so if not,
Well, we ask that every member is
think about it. If I miss another, yes. If I miss it, it doesn't become so I
So you write, how do you write click 3?
Please, please help us here. Okay. Everyone will except for one. Okay, finish with one. Means that
Do we need to write down names?
This is like trending of the one as a train that goes this way, and the red one is the train that's going this way.
yes, yes.
So which is the front of the train? Which the front of the train? You can just say,
Okay, okay. So how is it? Please.
once the idea is there,
Okay, let's check.
what your priority is the non-front, non.
I'm sorry, how can I write the instruction? Can I write it to the chat?
You don't want to have the front train. So
Right.
here, your priority is to move the non-front. This one is the front. So this is the red priority. So
Yeah, in some
in this case, you will
some
move
different things that I can
right
really get to your
Puzzle for the person who haven't seen
we have like
before
local
such kind of puzzle. So he opens the instructions, he opens the site, and what
and
that
that's
will
just how do you do that?
you as a
And
group
we'll
just
go
go
around
see
and when you don't
and which will make that.
We need to write the instructions. Those who are not seeing this thing. So what's in there?
Can we teach everyone to solve the puzzle? Yes.
Can I have a
Okay. Okay. Please write an instruction how to solve the puzzle for the person who haven't seen the site before. So he opens your instruction, opens the website, and what he needs to do. Just like Oh, maybe, yes, but we're different things. So just an instruction, please put down your names. Okay. There, okay? And you should use whatever you want. Okay, those who have finished, and those who haven't, those who have finished, I see done, almost done. Let's have 10 minutes break, 12 minutes break, and at 8:04, please come back, okay? 8:04.
I'm sorry, can I write the instruction to the chart?
Very
right?
good.
I can, yeah, I can write the instruction to the chart. So right now I'm finishing to type it.
Yep. Guys, is everyone knows how to solve the puzzle? If yes, I would ask you, now you could share the screen. I would ask Matthew to show how you solve the puzzle. Yes, done. Great, thank you.
Can we
Okay.
give any kind of instructions like
Okay.
where to click?
I can.
Yeah, I'm typing the instruction
I
right
cannot.
now.
Share screen. Where is it?
Matthew, we cannot hear you. I cannot hear you.
Oh yes,
Uh,
I have to find how to do it. Okay,
You-
there.
Yeah, right now I'm on the way to write a whole instruction to the chart.
But could you please just show how you did that?
We've did that several times, actually. Just to understand.
Let's check, Matthew, your
Uh,
knowledge of this puzzle.
sorry. Is this one right? Yes. So, you have to keep a space between. Well, yeah, always have to blue red, do blue red, blue red,
Okay.
like this, this. I think I messed it up. I messed it up. Yep, sorry.
Okay. Once again, please do not help each other.
Okay.
Mhm.
What did I do? Oh yes, I have it now. There.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Matthew. Could you, hello, Justine, could you please also share with us your screen and show how you solve it?
Yes, okay.
Matthew, you need to stop sharing so that.
I don't know how to do it. Right? Zoom.
Are you able to see my screen?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Please. Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think it was like.
I guess you need to reset.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yes.
Oh shit, I messed up.
Okay.
Let me try again.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Can I do the?
Is this your instruction in the chat? From all of you, right?
Yeah, from all of us.
Okay.
I mean, because there was only one combination, it can only be one instruction.
One instruction. Okay. Oh, okay. I see.
If it's needed, I can show.
Milana, and could you send it to my email like this so that I could print it out for the next class, because we're going to have some assignment with these instructions.
Hello, Professor. Just to clarify and to remind you, this is Maxim.
And Maria?
Yes, we are on the same.
Together, yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, we will be the next week with you offline, but for now we're just came. Yeah. So yes, from the next week we will join you in offline classes and be present.
Okay, I see. Milana, please indicate in this instruction, as far as I understood, like you worked with everyone or not. If there were several groups, please send it to me separately, or if it was one instruction from all of you, just one email then, for me to print it out for the next class, okay?
Yeah, I was in a group and we discussed it. I don't know, should I send it from group or personally? This is my own instruction and I want to share with the group. We discussed it during the action, then I came up with this scheme. This is my scheme, but anyway, each of members helped me with this. To understand the logic.
Okay, let me do the following. Milana, Eloy, Khan, Matthew, you are gonna be in group 1, online group 1. Monica, Nick, and Sandipan, Maxim, Maria, you are gonna be in group 2. So I need one instruction from the first group, Milana, Eloy, Khan, and Matthew, and Monica, Nick, and Sandipan, Maxim, Maria, group 2. Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Great. Please send it to my email as lecture 2 group assignment, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Sorry, can you please write the names of the groups just because we want to create the Telegram chat? So we do not get lost with somebody.
Actually, I have a right not a complaint, but to say that ours works for any number of roles. But I think some of them wrote a specific example.
Okay, group 2.
Okay, sure.
And group 1. Okay, let's have 2 more minutes break and then come back.
I get you. That's why I'm gonna. No, I agree that one is the but I'm gonna this is scenario in the sense that he did say if you wanted a 3-top solution, but this was for 1,000 points. No, this looks for. So I can do the 3-top example, but then every group. So I'll ask him what does he want. Oh, no. Did you have to sign it? I never signed it. I was thinking just to like write rules like not yet. But I didn't even ask. This one is no.
So done.
Yeah, sorry, is there a sign-in sheet? Like, we're supposed to write our names. Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that.
Here. Yes, participants list for today. Yes.
Professor?
Yes.
Does the example need to be specific to 3 frogs? Because I made up one that works for any number of frogs. I mean, I can write the individual steps for 3 frogs.
It's up to you to decide. Keep in mind that this person has never seen this website before, so
What if it's for 4? I mean, how do I put it? If it only works for 3 frogs, is it okay or?
it is okay. It is okay.
Okay.
Okay, no problem. Давайте.
А у нас появилась окошко для загрузки домашнего задания, но когда я его прямо в субботу,
Да, это я просто
Вот,
после разобрался.
можно
Не нужно.
продолжать?
Нет, не
Хорошо.
нужно. Okay, done. Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay. Guys, here is participants list. No, not everyone put their name. Please do so. Participants list.
Кстати, а еще можно уточнить у вас? Я на первом этапе, я помню, что когда нужно записываться, я подумала, что я не записалась. Это очень сильно влияет.
Запишите. Единственное, мне кажется, он с другой стороны. Там все.
До сих пор не начал таким подкатом.
Okay, let's continue. Let's continue our class with knowledge processes.
I'm a bit uncertain about the last week's group assignment. I kind of disagree, or rather I can argue in good ways for some of the things.
I made some comments here for
Mine's great. Yeah, I think that's yeah, because
this one, not
yeah.
this one, this one.
Yeah, this one is mine.
Yours one, this one.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is because like
we could discuss it later on then. Okay, okay. Guys, please take your seats. Let's come up with knowledge processes. Who could remind me? Who could remind me 3 knowledge processes? Guys. Who could remind me 3 knowledge related processes we discussed last class? Please remember the triangle of processes. Sharing, yes. Creation, knowledge creation, and what did you say? Sharing, creation, and the third one, knowledge sharing is synonymous transfer. So transfer knowledge from one person to another. So sharing, creation, and codification. Someone might say, is it codification like codification knowledge management strategy? And it is at the same time process? Yes, it's both. Creation, sharing, codification. Someone asked me, why do we have only why there are 9 processes? Please look at this bunch of verbs, and as you assume, we could come up with well, dozens of different knowledge-related processes, but that could take place at individual, group, organizational level. For instance, absorptive capacity paper that you have read, basically it is about learning, individual, group, organizational. Here, pretty much the same with processes. Again, 4 processes, knowledge creation, and up to now, you know that there are 2 types of this knowledge creation, like general creation, 2 types, creation itself and knowledge acquisition. Then sharing, transfer, dissemination, codification, 3 major processes. Another approach to looking at these processes, maybe not triangle, but please have a look.
I'm very sorry for that.
Which deadline?
This is the question. So I guess there is a deadline for 21st of April for a search seminar. Is there?
These are for your presentations to upload in LMS. These are just that. So you could do that.
So one with the methodology.
Yeah. Because we have different dates, that's why I scheduled it for that. Okay, generation, codification, transfer, application, pretty much the same idea except for application. Of course, we could apply this knowledge. How do we do that? Please remember codification strategy. We have documents. Our codification strategy implies that people, for example, share their knowledge, let's say weekly, on a weekly basis. And then other people are going to use this knowledge in one way or another, or small marketing company has wiki pages that employees fulfilled, and then it is assumed that other employees are gonna go to corporate wikis to search for some information. Raise your hands, those who have their wiki repository of some kind of internal knowledge in their companies of employment. Some kind of repository of knowledge, wiki pages, and so on. Do you use it regularly?
Yes.
No, yes, no. Oh, why yes? What is so convenient about it?
I use it for basically there is some instructions on how to write some sort of documentation, such as technical tasks, or how to apply some tests. If we talk about testing of software system.
So valuable information that you are not aware of, but you use in your operations. Why not?
Necessary for me in my current work.
They're
supposed to be useful for me, but
they're supposed to be useful.
Yes.
That's the issue in knowledge management. Knowledge management wikis are supposed to be useful for people, but in reality, they're not. And that's the issue, how to make them first useful, and secondly, how to make people do usually use them. Because it may be useful, but people do not know how to, are not trained to use the software, or they do not have time to get, well, study it in details. And that is also the responsibility of managers, right? To teach, to explain, to show the value. Okay, so application is also the thing that we are taking into account. Who could remind me about this differentiation, creation and acquisition? What's the difference? 5%, 95% of what? Percentages of what? Time. Creation, you mean innovations? Oh, okay. Yes, there is such 595, but what's the nature of these processes? What's the difference? So creation, you invest or somehow create knowledge internally. Acquisition, you buy, you rent, you hire, whatever. And in this case, well, you just get new knowledge because, well, 95% of all your needs are out there already invented, and you just don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? That's the idea. It's also a good idea to think, do I know a lot of companies that have R&D departments in their structure? Not really, right? It's not like all companies around us have R&D. So indeed, creation is kind of specific, but it's not only about R&D. We could create knowledge while brainstorming, while getting some lessons learned or learn the reports, also possible. As for acquisition, you learned about absorptive capacity. Yes, indeed. 9 processes. Please have a look. I guess it's very interesting to see like the general idea here. I want it. The general idea. So we either create or acquire new knowledge, and I would suggest that you acquire this knowledge from the outside. What you can do else, if you found out that, wow, this is a nice practice, new technique, knowledge management, let's introduce it. You could, well, share this knowledge with your fellow colleagues, top management team, whatever, or you could directly apply it. For instance, you figured out new way of running meetings or new way of brainstorming, and you straight away apply this thing. Or, well, here application is different, but still, so some practice that you know from the outside. Remember the paper about absorptive capacity, you apply it. When you applied it or shared it, or you shared it and then you applied it, you may already understand whether it's useful knowledge or not. And in this way, you could do what? If it's useful knowledge, I will share it with other departments or throughout the whole company, disseminate this knowledge. I could, we're going to talk about that. I could store this knowledge, codify this knowledge in one way or another, instructions, guidelines, procedures, different kinds of storing knowledge. I will share with you examples. I could, for instance, I learned something and knowledge acquisition or absorbing, basically about learning, right? We are talking about knowledge management, but you need to be aware that for decades, they equalized knowledge management as organizational learning. And there are fancy books on organizational learning, learning organization, which states that, well, knowledge management and organizational learning pretty much the same. Absorbing new ideas. What is learning in general? I get new knowledge, new information, new ideas, and then use it in order to change my behavior. I learn something, I behave differently. That's the idea behind organizational learning. I could learn something on purpose. I could learn some outdated knowledge, information. If I do that randomly, it's a good idea to get rid of these organizational procedures, practices, and so on. I could unlearn. So organizational forgetting is about either intentional unlearning. Yes, you do certain things in this way. This is the ritual, for example. You as manager understand, no, that's not a good way. Let's get rid of that, and you do that intentionally. And you could forget some knowledge unintentionally. Professors live in HSC, they take with them a lot of their knowledge, how things running and so on. And you could, with them, lose their knowledge. Or maybe you just, got all your electronic documents stolen, whatever. So you forget some knowledge. This takes place. If you share knowledge across departments, you could also replicate. Let's imagine you have headquarter company in the United States, and you had a branch in St. Petersburg, and you replicate best practices from the American department here in HSC. We understand that and replication means direct copying. And this is a specific term when we replicate best practices. There are pitfalls, because when we replicate best practices, we need to be very clear that all of these practices are contextualized. And this context that impacts that this specific practice is very effective and results in higher performance or productivity. Some other external factors from this environment, values, positions, stakeholders may impact this particular efficiency of this best practice. And if we just copy it, okay, let's make, I don't know, let's make some specific fancy practice in more traditional conservative societies. Maybe it's not going to be that effective. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 processes. In general scheme, I propose that we have a different one. Like this, maybe it's more clusterized. So we generate knowledge, we apply this knowledge or disapply this knowledge. We assess it, and then we transfer it in one way or another, sharing, majorly sharing, replicating or storing within the organization. And then we, based on this stored or disseminated knowledge, update it, like in the knowledge creating company, the cycle. So it's going to be indeed the cycle of knowledge management. This is another way of presenting these processes. About these processes, we're going to talk more here, or more straightforward, beginning from acquisition. I write here generation in order not to repeat creation, right? But for us to understand, we have large creation of knowledge. We haven't had it before in our company, and now we have it. what is important when we're talking about knowledge generation and knowledge creation, we're talking about novelty of this knowledge, novelty from the point of view of organization. This particular practice may be already in the business practice for decades, but it is new for our company, right? We hadn't had this knowledge in our company before. That's why it's novel. That's why it's knowledge acquisition. For instance, if we took something, for instance, you go to the professional conference, you discuss it with colleagues, and then you get something into your company. Okay, and another way is over here, the general logic, right? We have knowledge creation, sharing, and codification. We have for knowledge creation, we have, yes, SESI model, which states that knowledge creation is the transformation of tacit knowledge into explicit, right? And we have knowledge acquisition as acquiring external knowledge, basically absorbing this knowledge. That's why it's called absorptive capacity. Knowledge creation could result in, well, the final, of course, a sustained competitive advantage, right? Usually measured as performance. Performance, how can we get that when we make it more, when we analyze it? We could, some of these processes could lead to revenue growth, right? For instance, when we launch new products, right? Or when we introduce marketing innovations, new packages, whatever, and costs reduction, when our processes become more efficient, like time saved on meetings while making decisions on leasing, right? Pretty much the same idea. And usually cost reductions, when we're talking about knowledge sharing processes, are related to time saved, right? You do not go to the databases and search for 2 days. You ask your fellow colleague, and in 2 minutes you get, or in a second, you get the reply. Cost reduction in terms of salary of your high qualified employees. For codification, cost reduction, directly, I would say, because, well, this is how you, well, organize this process of codification when people refer to this documentation. Knowledge creation results in innovations, but not all knowledge that we create, well, becomes innovations, not necessarily. We could have some process improvements, and these are so-called organizational innovations. Organizational innovations, we do some things differently, and as a result, we reduce our costs of production, administrative costs, and so on. Or we launch new product, and then we have revenue growth, which in the end leads to performance. And in general, the general research tradition is that innovations are related directly to performance. So this is our general scheme. From here, you could already see that we have two knowledge-related knowledge management strategies: personalization around knowledge sharing, and codification around well, codification process. And here already, like, differentiation between knowledge creation and knowledge acquisition. For SESI model, there are some specificity that we are going to discuss, but up to now, if we're talking in general about knowledge creation, let's sum up everything which is possible for us at a general scope. Knowledge acquisition, to buy a firm, and it is stated in the paper, why buying a firm is a new knowledge for us. In what way? How so? How so?
You learn about the firm itself, like the annual report, you have to read it so you get the knowledge of the company.
Okay, annual report, knowledge of the company. Remember intellectual capital elements. What do we buy? with the firm in terms of their intellectual capital elements?
Their brands,
Brand,
their reputation, their clientele.
reputation, clients database, structural capital of different nature, patents, whatever they have, employees, right? Some well fired, but some are left still. What else? Customers and knowledge about customers. Yes. So we could buy a firm. Benefits cost analysis. Well, too expensive, I guess. Not for everyone, right? Okay, we could hire a specialist, right? We want to do, and it's important here. We acquire knowledge when we want to do something on a strategic level, but we do not have competences for that. For instance, you want to launch, I don't know, YouTube channel, but you do not have guys who are, have this video production experience, so you hire a specialist. But you acquire knowledge based on your strategic initiatives, strategic needs. Rental. What can we rent? Like what?
Transportation services.
But we're talking here about knowledge creation or, well, getting new knowledge within the company. Rent a database. Subscription. Okay, okay, might be. Coach. So consultant specialist, consultant of different kind. Yes, yes, we could do that. Dedicated resources, our traditional R&D, right? R&D, research and development departments. We could have, and here also, working groups or different kinds of brainstorming possible for us to, well, create new knowledge. You brainstorm a new strategy and you figure out some new insight. This new insight is newly created knowledge. With regard to this fusion and insights, this is the traditional practice from the United States military that was taken into business practice, so-called after action review. Basically, you have your planned activities, what was planned, what you got in fact, actual, what is the difference and reasons for these differences, and what have you learned, lessons learned, 1, 2, 3. And these lessons learned, basically the new knowledge that you could use in your business practice organization and products or projects launch. Usually these lessons learned, they are stored somewhere in wiki or any other documents. They could be done on a regular basis, for instance, once a month. And then later on you have a nice database, which could be for some useful, for some not that useful. But well, this is the still an example of knowledge creation. And we have communities of practice. You remember we discussed 2 approaches to knowledge. One approach is commodity view, codify everything, and another approach, community approach, or constructivist approach to connect people. Communities of practice is a specific knowledge management approach and how to measure this, manage this knowledge. But we are going to discuss it already in May. As for the knowledge creation, not all knowledge creation results in innovations. Why? Because for innovations, except for creative idea, we need also realization. You already know that for innovations to really arise and succeed, you need first to propose innovation, and second, and sell it. And people are usually resistant to new things. And second, well, to realize it. And you could have a very nice idea of a flying machine, but without the necessary resources, without the necessary locations as contemporary organizations that combine various resources, you won't be able to come up with well, contemporary planes. For innovations, when we discuss the term innovation, it is important to understand that innovation is a new process, product, improvement, and so on, new for the organization. New for the organization, meaning, okay, new product, agree, new way of doing business or new way of product production. Your competitors could use it, but when you decide to use this idea in your business, it becomes your innovation. So when we're talking about innovations, well, yes, we could apply old ideas. Yes, we could apply the old ideas, and little improvements could be done or radical improvements. That's why innovations, they could be classified by forms and by the way, the paper that I suggested to you as a supplementary reading on diffusion of innovations is very interesting in a way how they explain the diffusion of innovations, that there are going to be some really advanced customers, companies, and so on, who take up this innovation. Then there are going to be major innovations who are going to use them. And there is going to be a tipping point when everyone starts to use it. So very interesting paper from the point of view of marketing, saying that no, there is not like such thing that something happened and everyone uses new thing. No, there is a process. For innovations, forms of innovations, so product innovations, and then group organizational innovations, however they might be different. And here we could say marketing innovation, administrative innovation, and production. And for degree of novelty, radical innovation, so absolutely new area, new product, new iPhone like solution, and incremental, small, like insignificant, but still improvements that result in performance gains. So this is here. Let's talk about the idea of knowledge creation company. They haven't showed it in the paper in this way, but I guess it's that's the most important thing over here. We have tacit knowledge of bakery, on doing this bread thing, right? So, and we have engineer. They come together, they socialize. She observes his or her behavior, and in this way she learns. She also acquires tacit knowledge. And that's why when we're talking about such HR, and here it's written there as rotations, right? You spend time with another person, you get his or her tacit knowledge. The same ideas through socialization, observation, discussion, and so on. Then this engineer, she tries her newly acquired tacit knowledge to transfer into explicit knowledge. So she understands, okay, this is how he makes bread. This is my engineering like product specification. What is different there? What's his addition to this product specification? And she tries to articulate or externalize this knowledge, right? External, in contrast to internal, externalization to make it explicit, external. So she externalizes it. In the paper, they discuss several methods of such externalization. Authors argue that such externalization from tacit knowledge into explicit is difficult. And by the way, you also did that today, right? You had instructions, you had your tacit knowledge, and you had to make it explicit. And if you pay attention, we have 3 absolutely different formats of these instructions. We have only words. Please pay attention. It is interesting here because, well, the same people, but different. Thank you, Darren. Not here. 1, 2, 3. No. Okay, we have this one. 4 different ways of doing so. We have only words. Please have a look. And 15 steps. We have very eloquent, like 4, 5 like lines, and that's it. We have like large number, well, 16 moves, and here 15 moves. These are pretty similar, but there is some initial instruction over here. And we have this instruction. Is it like 2 options or?
We have to, one works for any number of frogs, and then the other is for the 3 frogs, like specific.
So the second is for 3 frogs, this one,
Yeah.
right? Okay. So the same task, 4 different formats of instructions. Next class, we're gonna try and check the efficiency of these instructions. So please be ready to try something new. Okay. What's the idea here? How did you externalize your knowledge? Those who wrote these instructions. Yeah, I guess it was you, right? So how did you do that? Why not to write like in a line or use words? Why just numbers and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
This is it. So in the line, I guess it's more. I saw the line version.
Okay, numbers, because this is clear.
Yeah.
Group 1, here 4, Stas, Елена, Олеся, Икачуку, Далапа, Елизавета, you proposed with the words, move green once from right, move blue once from right. So you use words here. Why not numbers like in Yeva's approach? Okay.
I realized I thought someone.
Okay. Darren, in your case, you have a very interesting example with naming particular space of frogs and then some code, what you need to press, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. Different ways of proposing the instruction. So you have tacit knowledge, you try to articulate it. Eva selected numbers, guys selected words, some selected coding specific spaces. So you articulated, externalized this tacit knowledge in different ways, agree? Different ways, because this is indeed very, well, subjective thing. They discuss 3 elements of how you externalize this knowledge. Maybe it's, our example is simple, but for bread making machine, maybe not that much. Metaphor, so we select something that we could use as a benchmark. Yes, automobile evolution and then you have tall boy, analogy, and then the model with the product specifications designed. You have these specifications, so it is already external, explicit knowledge, sorry, explicit. You combine it, why combination? You combine it with your engineers team, engineers team with product specification and requirements in order explicit plus explicit to come up with some new explicit knowledge, this bread making machine. And then what's the next step? Why I like this? This is the idea that once we have conducted and created new knowledge and it becomes explicit within the organization, we have organizational knowledge, and this product specification is actually our explicit knowledge, organizational knowledge. Employees get this explicit knowledge internalized in terms that they say, okay, there are specific rules of behavior, there are specific organizational knowledge, organizational culture, I'm going to internalize it as a way so that it becomes mine. And then when you leave the organization, some of this knowledge stays with you and you could actively use it. So this is the cycle. Why? Because later on you could, and this is a very nice example how they develop it. Later on, after the next cycle, you could spread it to new departments and so on, the company in general. So the cycle of knowledge creation. But we have to understand that SESI model is one way to look at knowledge creation. It's not necessarily that knowledge creation is only tacit to explicit way of creating knowledge, not necessarily. But the idea is very nice. Strategy. Coming back to the first paper, I guess it is important. Physical economy and knowledge economy, basically gas and oil extraction, and the knowledge economy, where you design new automobiles and so on, innovations. Obviously here, you might use innovations to some degree, but I would say lesser. For what? In order to decrease costs, right? You design some new extraction machine, processes and so on, so that it is less expensive for you to operate the machine, right? Less costs. But here you use it extensively, right? In order to launch new products, processes, and so on. So in physical economy, and when I mean physical economy, I mean that in organizations that are not that knowledge intensive, you do not need to have extensive knowledge management initiatives and innovation management initiatives, agree? You could extract oil, okay, somehow reduce costs, but there is no need to innovate. There is no need to, well, manage knowledge, because you remember knowledge economy, physical economy. Here, people are just sources of costs. You have to pay them wages, salary, and so on. But here, people and their knowledge is the source of innovations, right? They produce value. And it is important to say that in, okay, physical economy, maybe less, let's call it not physical, but low knowledge intensive economy. In low knowledge intensive economy, you do not need to invest in knowledge management, to manage knowledge. For the bakery, you do not need that much knowledge management processes introduced, no need for that. So when you decide about final project, please think about that and have a look at the examples of these projects. There are barriers to knowledge creation related to and we're going to discuss it, not invented here syndrome. As for the knowledge acquisition, as for the absorptive capacity, what is important there? Accumulated prior knowledge. Idea is that we have, and here there's going to be the process again. We have absorptive capacity, ability to understand the valuable external knowledge and assimilate it in order to increase our performance in different ways. We discussed it with you, but for that, we need a knowledge base. In order to understand what is valuable, you need to know what presents value, right? What is valuable and what valuable is not. I remember when I started in the field of human resource development, training and development, there were a bunch of articles of low quality, and until I understood what are like the core contributors and what are like the high quality concepts, authors and publications, it wouldn't be helpful for me to increase my productivity to learn something. So knowledge base, how do we get this knowledge base? From staffing. So we, yes, acquire employees who are knowledgeable so that they could learn and understand what is important for us to get, or through internal development. So training and development, also possible here. 2 ways, but we need to have this knowledge base. That's where it's stated. And then you just, your efforts, your memory, somewhat said today, having bad memory, your learning skills, and we acquire this knowledge. 95.5%, yes, indeed. Innovations, the majority of them happening in organizational settings are from acquisition. External knowledge is bigger. Obviously, no need to reinvent the wheel. But you need to identify this knowledge. It's not that simple, and you need to interpret it. So absorptive capacity is the ability of the firm to recognize, assimilate, and apply. And these are basically 3. In the paper, you have 4 elements of absorptive capacity: potential and realized, right? Potential absorptive capacity, realized absorptive capacity that, well, you use in order to get these benefits. But like we already discussed, all aspects of knowledge processes result in performance through different, paths only. Okay. Individual absorptive capacity do not equal firm's absorptive capacity. Why? Why? Synergy, what particular, in what way? Okay, synergistic effect, but with regard to absorptive capacity, what does it mean? You have one knowledge, I have another. Okay, we have knowledge about this and this. Why it's it assumes that it is more from this absorptive capacity is more, right? Why? There is also such a fact as non-additiveness of knowledge. For instance, in physical economy, you have $1. You add it to another $1, you get 2. In with regard to knowledge, if I have one particular piece of knowledge, and for instance, types of absorptive capacity, and I share it with my colleague who has the same knowledge about types of absorptive capacity, we still get one, the same piece of knowledge. So it's non-additiveness of knowledge. We cannot add knowledge that we already know. So in this way, someone might argue that, well, firm's absorptive capacity is even less than some of absorptive capacities individual. Why it's higher with synergy?
I think it's possible that as an individual employee, you might know set A and another employee might know set B, but when you both share, there might be some new idea that builds on both.
So new ideas. At the intersections of both these areas.
I think
Might
intersection
be.
is a wrong analogy. Like I kind of box myself into that, but it's more of like I did not understand this idea, but once you shared with me, I was able to advance to a new technique. So it's like I don't know, like maybe if I have a screwdriver and you have a hammer, like I can build newer things rather than when you only build with this and I only build with this.
Okay. You're all right. We have this particular knowledge, but also we have relationships that allow us, right, as a group to get higher, well, larger perspective, to get new, well, look at particular thing, or to get deeper understanding of particular, well, elements. As in teamwork, they say team as an acronym. Together, everyone achieves more because of this synergistic effect, and because, well, our knowledge doubles or triples when we're in the group. Pretty much over here, why it's important, because we as organizations could get benefits from this approach, but not invented here syndrome. People are reluctant to get new ideas. In the paper on knowledge sharing, it was related to this resistance to getting knowledge, right? I resist to get this knowledge because I'm part of the group, and I think that only my group is the most knowledgeable one. I do not want to hear to others. These new practices are not invented here in my company. We are doing such thing for a lot of time, for a lot of years, so we're not going to do that. Not invented here syndrome. And in the paper on knowledge sharing hostility, there are different ways on how to overcome that. Please pay attention. Also, if we are talking about knowledge acquisition, so market research for marketing department, knowledge about our customers, cooperation with clients, co-creation, so-called, also possible way of getting knowledge, acquisition of companies, strategic alliance, partnerships with knowledgeable companies, all have benefits that we could think of. Please have a look. These are the main knowledge transmitter issues. The person who shares knowledge that, for instance, potential loss of value, we already discussed, but there are more aspects, and you as managers could, well, understand that each of these aspects you could tackle somehow. For instance, creating a trust so people do not think that they're gonna lose value, or reluctance to spend time because you do not have time, you study, you work, you do not have, well, opportunity to spare time to your fellow colleagues. So you could do that. Assessment of knowledge quality. Well, this is kind of very tough organizational culture. Being misunderstood, well, collaboration, socialization, career damage. Here about the organizational trust and relationships with supervisor. As for knowledge receivers, well, there are also some peculiarities. When we overcome these particular aspects, as well as next time we're going to discuss organizational culture characteristics, how to work with attitude towards mistake. Different barriers to knowledge sharing. The last one is, you read the paper on social exchange theory. People are sharing knowledge or exchange something for social or economic benefits. One approach states here, and this is just in line with social exchange theory, individuals are self-interests people, right? Individuals, they want their personal gains. So they do cost-benefit analysis in order to understand, do I get something from that or not? And if I understand that, yes, I'm gonna get something from that, I, well, invest into these relationships, right? So, for example, before the example, individuals, firms inherently hostile to knowledge sharing. Why? Right? Lose of value, do not have time, something else, right? Maybe they're gonna fire me, and so on. So in this way, people do not want to share knowledge. This is kind of logical from this approach. But another way, which is different, this is from attachment theory, we're going to discuss it. Individuals' altruistic behaviors, we have a need to belong, and that's why we well, share our knowledge in one way or another. This is number one. And secondly, this is also social exchange theory. Why? Because we exchange not with economic rewards, expectations of economic rewards, but expecting some social rewards, belonging, approval, and so on. So I ask my fellow colleague a question, and he replies back to me in the first position, because he expects that I will help him, for example, right? And this is, well, some benefit over here, benefit from my side, or benefit from the organization. For instance, in some organizations, when they facilitate knowledge sharing, they pay virtual currency. For instance, on knowledge management portals, knowledge currency. You reply to some comment, or you're actively involved in knowledge portal or wiki creation and so on. You get virtual currency, and then you transform this virtual currency into some gift. I don't know, travel somewhere. Okay, possible economic return, or organization could motivate you non-monetary. For instance, on knowledge portals, they have leaders board. Let's imagine you have internal portal, you go there in the morning and you see your face over here with two others saying, these are our best contributors to knowledge sharing. Recognition. Leaders board is also, well, a tool to facilitate knowledge sharing, and they have like very interesting, sophisticated tools how to, let's say, facilitate knowledge sharing. Someone might say manipulate employees, right? So, but still, these are like specific things that you could do. But still, there is some self-interest behavior that we that we have to somehow compensate for. How can you compensate for? Financially, yes. You have contract, you have, for instance, premium or bonuses for knowledge sharing, active participation. Okay, socially, you have trust, or you have organizational citizenship behavior where everyone is committed to the organization, so they are willing to share knowledge. Or you have rules. You're saying, okay, you're gonna have quiz next time. If you do not pass the quiz, you're gonna fail the course and not gonna get degree. Organizational rules, right? This is how you also impact employees. And behavior assumptions here, opportunism, self-interest behavior. That's why we pay obedience and organizational citizenship behavior over here. So you could use a mixture of these three, right? In order to, well, manage people's behavior, not only with regard to knowledge sharing, but in general, okay? And there are different instruments how you're gonna do that. Monetary contracting, monitoring for this monetary benefits, compensation, informal, formal reinforcement of rules, building relationships, trust, and culture of knowledge sharing. Knowledge sharing and knowledge creation, how they're interrelated. Knowledge creation leads to innovation, but not always, so it's just part of it. Knowledge creation is more about just replication of best practices. If we're talking about storing knowledge in organizations, there are different ways how we could do that. We're gonna start, I guess, next class with this particular thing, how we could store knowledge within the organization. And I will share with you example of NASA and their moon expedition and the Sochi Olympic Games and their innovations in knowledge storing within their community. Up to now, you have just one assignment about reading the knowledge strategy paper. I would also ask you to look at the examples of not 3 papers, 1 paper, at the example of final projects. I will also assign to 2 groups, 2 exchange students, so that they are gonna work with you. I would also ask you to study the requirements, because we missed that in the first lecture for the final project. In the first lecture slides, you're gonna have these requirements. Please do study them carefully. And up to now, I already expect that you have some kind of understanding what particular company you could select as the company for your consulting project. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Dear all, thank you very much. In
Thank
case
you,
you have questions,
Professor.
please email me and I will be glad to reply to them. Ilua and Matthew, please do